everybody, welcome to Fans Down South. I'm John Miller. With me is Steve Jinks, of course.
Hello, John. Welcome back, everybody. Good to be here for another week of Fans Down South.
Another edition of Fans Down South, and we are in a special place today.
Yes, we are.
We are in the Deep Fried Studios, downtown Mobile at Container Yard. Johnny Gwynn runs this place. Isn't it really cool?
It is cool, John. I got good news for everybody out there watching and listening. If you would like to be in this beautiful Deep Fried Studios place today, you can too. Not right now, not in this moment. But I mean, you have an opportunity to do that. If you're looking to do a podcast or anything like that, this is the place to be, man.
Yeah, and the packages start at just $25 an hour.
Definitely.
Just to get your message out into the world. You can't beat that.
You know, everybody doesn't have sound equipment, doesn't have a studio. This is a place you can come and do it, and at a great rate. So thanks to Johnny for hooking us up today.
Absolutely. Well, let's dig right into this weekend in college football. Big games, and none any bigger than the game Alabama versus Ole Miss.
Yeah, it was a big game. It was a little scary game for Bama fans. One of those cardiac arrest games in the beginning, and Bama started off slow, and Ole Miss just kept pouring it on. And then all of a sudden, Bama comes back and pulls within a touchdown. I mean, it was 23.
Yeah, they were down by like 21 points, right?
Yeah, 24-3. And just like, oh man, this is horrible. And then Bama comes back and then takes a bigger lead. And then Ole Miss comes back, and then in the middle of all that, there were about 24, or maybe 20, maybe it's 27. I think it was 27 times where they actually get call timeout. Let's go take a look at the instant replay and get a decision on that.
I tuned in at one point,
goodness.
And it was like I watched 4 consecutive plays, and I think 3 of them were instant replay. Like they were going back to take a look at it.
It was 3 in a row for sure. I know at one point. And not to mention, you had the wonderful commentating on the side. You had Gary,
Always.
Well, I think Vern. And then Vern was going, and that was all I heard for like 3 hours.
Do you ever tune them out and turn on Eli? Or
I mean, mentally, I try to, but they're not horrible. They really aren't.
Yeah.
They do make some mistakes, but I mean, they got a lot of games to cover throughout the year. They're just easy to pick on. I think more than anything else, it's just fun.
They remind me of the 2 guys on the Muppets. The Muppet Show, and they're in the balcony, and they just kind of...
Yeah, and somebody put a picture of that on Facebook last year, I think. The Muppets look just like them. They are. This is my impersonation of Vern in a football game. Wow! That's it.
That could be any game.
Any game. Any
play.
moment in the game. Wow!
Well, let me ask you this, because, it was sort of a ebb and flow, back and forth, and it was a lot of excitement to the game.
Yeah.
And it was probably a higher scoring game than you used to see in Alabama.
It was. It was.
And then at the end, you had Saban. He was he smiling? He was almost smiling?
Looked like he just got his first bicycle on Christmas Day. He wasn't. He was excited, I think, because, like he said after the game, I think the players had to perform well with the situations they were in. He was able to see some of the guys. They made some mistakes. He obviously admitted that and said there were plenty to coach them up on. But he was really proud of how the team fought through adversity, came back, and even held it off at the end. Even when it looked like, I don't know, we've messed up again by letting them get back into it. And they held them off in the end. And he was just really proud of the team, I think. So that was a lot of questions. A lot of people were going, what's Saban going to feel like after this game? There's so many points scored on his defense. There were a lot of mistakes. They got behind early in the game. He seemed happier than I've seen him in a long time because I think he's starting to see some chemistry on this team, and I think he's actually seeing some promising things maybe for the future this year.
Well, and it's interesting too. You look at Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is are they the best 1 and 2 team in the country? I mean, they sure seem like it.
It's crazy, man, and they've got another big game coming up this week.
It seems like almost if their schedule had been a little more favorable.
Yeah,
I mean, who knows where they would be? They would be in the top 5, I'm sure.
Granted, they don't just have a letdown after losing 2 games. I mean, that team is so talented, man.
Right.
And here's the thing, too, John. I won't get into a lot of this because I'm certainly not an X's and O's guys, but our guy. I'm not guys or guy.
You're not guys or guys.
I'm not.
No.
But I think what I saw in that game is what scares me the most about an Alabama team, and that is Alabama plays great defense, but the style of secondary that Alabama and Nick Saban specifically coaches, it's if you got a quarterback who can hit a point, who can hit the receivers. I mean, you got to have a good quarterback who can really hit those spots, then you're in trouble. Now, they play great defense,
right?
but there's some holes, there's some wiggle room there And that wiggle room is in a quarterback that can throw the ball. And that's what we saw with Chad Kelly. I don't think we'll have another quarterback, I don't think, in the season. So maybe Texas A&M.
Yeah, I was going to say, Texas A&M may fit that bill better than any other team.
I think so.
You know, and maybe in a different way, just from an experience standpoint, and having playmakers around him, maybe Tennessee.
Tennessee,
But,
maybe, yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting.
I'm not as concerned at this point in the season about the Iron Bowl when it comes to quarterback.
Right. That's true.
Not yet.
We don't even know who the quarterback might be at that point.
We don't even know who the coach is going to be at that point.
Don't.
But we'll get into that later.
Well, and I tell you what, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of Auburn talk right now. And I watched pretty much the whole game, as much as I can when I have two small children. It's always an interesting scenario.
Changes the dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, but I did watch most of the game, and it's frustrating because you see them play, and you see sparks of really good play, and you feel like this could be a really good team.
Yeah.
But there's a few elements that are, I don't know if they're missing or they're just off, but definitely from a strategy standpoint, there's a problem.
It's crazy, man. It's like it's almost like having the greatest big pile of seafood and steaks, but nowhere to cook it. You know,
Okay,
that's
yeah.
a stupid thing to say. I'm thinking about food, but it's like you got all this talent on that team,
Yeah.
and it's just that, and that's supposed to be Malzahn's specialty, is taking
Right,
players and
right.
just inserting them, and it has not worked out. But man, their defense is so much fun to watch, and they work so hard, and you want to. You know, as a Bama fan, I want to see Auburn. I want to see them be victorious because it makes the Iron Bowl a lot more fun, obviously.
Sure.
And anybody in the state, we try to pull. But it's so frustrating, man, because they just cannot seem to put it all together. And you think, oh, they're going to do it, then they'll do something.
Yeah, and
boneheaded.
it's like you say, there is a lot of talent on this team, but it's almost like the coaching staff has really not done a good job of putting that talent in a position where they can win. They haven't done a good job of adapting to the talent that they have, and I'm not sure if that's something that can be fixed very easily. I am interested to see what they're going to do this week against LSU because they brought in John Franklin III, and I feel like in terms of what has worked before in the past, maybe he's that style of quarterback that can do that and do it well. But then again, there's the lack of experience.
Not so fast, my friend. I may be wrong in this, and I've been wrong so many times just this week. But I really do think this is the week that Auburn turns it around. I think they do it. I may be wrong, and LSU could prove me wrong, but I think Auburn has a chance with their defense and the struggles that LSU has. I think this is going to be the opportunity for Auburn to step up, really.
I think so.
And I think if they can get a win over LSU, they get some momentum, even though I know it's not 2011 or 10 or 12 at LSU. It's still LSU, and I think that gives Auburn some something going forward.
Well, and I agree with you, and I wouldn't have before the season started. You look at the problems that LSU has had; they're having similar issues.
They are.
And finding an identity.
And that defense has worked their tails off, but they're on the field so much. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And I just really hope this week that Auburn does turn it around. But Uncle Henry, roll Tide. Roll Tide.
And we're going to get into a little bit of USA.
Yeah.
University of South Alabama. Go Jags.
Go Jags. That's right.
They lost a close one.
The Jags have gone the past couple of weeks, though, man. Where have they been, John?
I know. They opened up the season with a big win against Mississippi State.
And they've had some close games. It's not like they've been blown out anyway,
right.
But it's just,
right.
Man, and the reason I say that, John, every week at the radio station, we do pick-ems on Fridays. And I've picked the Jags every week. I don't know if I can do it anymore. I want them to win.
I know.
But I keep losing my pick-ems. But anyway.
Well, you figure if they're good enough to beat Mississippi State on the road, they ought to be.
They're just barely losing, but they're losing.
Yeah. Well, they lost this week a close one to Lafayette.
They did.
And
which, by the way, not a slouch at all.
No, and actually they have. I bet LSU wishes they had that quarterback still.
Yeah.
You know, one of their quarterbacks left LSU to go to Lafayette.
Yeah.
He was the one playing against USA this weekend.
Yeah. So well, they're a proud program, and those Raging Cajuns has been around a long time.
Yeah.
And they've had success in the past, so they didn't lose to a slouch.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what. Let's. I want to check in with Pat Greenwood.
Speaking of Jags,
yes. Pat Greenwood, as some of you know, is the director of media relations over at USA, and he also calls the football games.
He does. He's a color guy.
Yeah, he's a color guy, and really, really cool guy. And this past week, I got a chance to catch up with him, ask him a little bit about the
one
USA
of the nicest
program.
guys in the local media.
He really is. He's one of those people that you'd probably be hard pressed to find somebody who didn't like Pat Greenwood.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to check in with that interview right now and see what he had to say about the USA program and that momentous win against the Bulldogs.
That's right.
Okay, so we're here with Pat Greenwood. And now tell us a little bit about what is your official role here at South Alabama?
That's a long story. But no, I'm director of multimedia here at the University of South Alabama. Among my duties, I'm the color guy for football radio broadcasts. I'm also the backup play-by-play guy for basketball and for baseball. I do Joey's TV show on Sundays. But my main job is we created and now continuing JagNationTV.com, which is a website that has not only edited content of every South Alabama sport, but now we are streaming every volleyball, soccer, baseball, basketball, softball game free on JagNationTV.com. So if you can't make a game for whatever reason, you log on to JagNationTV.com when we're playing, pop it up. It's HD quality, it's ESPN3 quality. So very exciting. So that's in a nutshell what I do.
That's really cool. Now, people in this area, they're usually affiliated.
Mm-hmm.
They have their allegiance to Auburn or Alabama. But now with South Alabama's football program, you're starting to see people add allegiances.
Absolutely. It's a growing fan base. Obviously, we've had athletics since 1963, but we just hadn't had football, and football makes a difference. And so we've had basketball and baseball and softball fans for South Alabama, but now all of a sudden you've got that football aspect. And what we've noticed is that people will, they're long-seated Alabama fans or long-seated Auburn fans, which is great. We have no issues with that. But what we figured out that they can do, or what they figured out that they can do, is come to tailgate, watch the Alabama game from the tailgate, and then come watch South Alabama play in person. And really, as their graduating classes continue with football, that fan base is a young fan base. It's growing, and I like to use my son as an example. He's 13 years old, and he is South Alabama football tried and true because he had that option as a youngster, and he is now choosing South Alabama, and he likes Alabama, and he likes Auburn, but South is his team. And so I think we'll see that fan base grow exponentially as these young kids get older.
Tell us a little bit about the game day experience at Ladd Stadium.
It's growing, and it's a lot of fun. There's tailgating, obviously, as you can imagine. We try to get those kickoff times at 6 or 6:30 to give people a lot of chances to tailgate. We actually have a fan fest every game that has free food, free music, and just a place, again, for people to come in and congregate and talk about Jags football. And the east side of the stands for South Alabama, the east side parking lot, is full of tents and tailgates and everything you can imagine. It's that college game day atmosphere, no doubt.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the excitement after that big Mississippi State win.
When it happened in Starkville, it's funny. It was a 17-0 game at halftime. We score, they score the field goal, so it's 20-7. We score a touchdown, 20-14. But it was about midway through the fourth, maybe 5 or 6 minutes left, when we forced them to punt. And I looked at JD, my radio partner, who is our play-by-play guy. I said, wait a second, we've got a shot here. And, of course, sure enough, we drive down the field, score the touchdown, leave a minute on the clock. They drive back down, miss the field goal. But it was a tremendous excitement for us in the radio booth just to be part of that, because we knew we'd been close against Tennessee before. We had played North Carolina State very well before, but you wanted that win over the Power 5 team, and to make it a win over a Power 5 that happens to be in the SEC was that much better, because there was so much attention focused on week one, and we were one of the first upsets of the year. And in fact, that day, South Alabama was trending #1 on Twitter nationwide, and that's mind-boggling that all of a sudden people are starting to talk about South Alabama all around the world because we won this football game against Mississippi State. But I was able to go down on the field and get some video of the players hugging and celebrating. And while we're doing post-game, you can hear in the locker room the celebration going on. So it was a neat event and good for South Alabama because we needed that signature win, something for people to talk about. And now the challenge is to build on that signature win.
Well, anything you want to tell to people that are still on the fence and they're thinking about coming out to Lab for a game?
Hey, look, you've got an opportunity to get season tickets for $60, which is insane. So the prices are great. Bring your family and come check it out, because I'll tell you, one of the things that struck me the very first game back in 2009, I wasn't sure what the competition was going to be in terms of how we would look on the field. The first thing that struck me was the Jaguar marching band, because I was used to covering high school football, and I figured we'd be somewhere between high school and college, and I had covered Alabama, I'd covered Auburn, covered Florida State, LSU. And when the Jaguar marching band back in 2009 struck that first chord, I went, wow, this is a big-time program. The marching band is tremendous. The cheerleaders are great. The football, obviously, is great. So if you're on the fence about coming, just come check it out. And I'm telling you, you're going to have a good time, because it's not just the game itself. There's the tailgating. There's everything that goes around it. And it's a good place to bring your family, have a good time on a Saturday afternoon. And we want you to come out and support the Jags.
USA's got a big task on their hands this weekend. They're
Really?
playing Nichols this
They
week.
do, man. The Nichols Colonels.
Yeah, are they the Colonels?
I think so. Maybe not. I think it is.
Could be. But anyway,
It should be.
they took Georgia and pushed them about as far as
It
they
did.
would want to go.
I think it used to be Nichols State. Now it's just Nichols. They're taking the state off. But yeah, it'll be a big game for the Jags. I hope the Jags bounce back this week, man. I really want them to.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? And after our interview, I was talking to Pat.
Yeah.
He said we ought to come out to tailgate
Yeah, man.
sometime.
That'd be fun.
Come out and tailgate, bring a camera.
We're definitely
Have
gonna
a
do
good
that.
time.
Maybe we're gonna do that before the season's out. Got to pick the
I
game.
think that'd be a lot of fun.
It will be.
So let's take a look around the SEC this weekend. Alabama, big game again. Kent State.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, it's it's
I wish we'd get past some of these non-conference games.
know.
I wish
I
we
know.
we could replace them with something else.
yeah. But at the end of the season, when you count that 12-0 or 13-0, you
Right.
can enjoy those. You're like, I'm glad we had it.
I'm glad Auburn had those games last year, or else we wouldn't have gone to a bowl game.
Well, it's one of those things too where it gives those. Well, let's look at South Alabama, for instance. It gave them a chance
Sure.
against Mississippi State.
Sure.
There's probably people going,
Well, yeah, Sure.
I mean, there's people saying, why do we got to play South Alabama? And then they're like, why did we play South Alabama?
Well,
So,
don't get me wrong. I mean, I understand why the opposing teams do it,
Yeah,
but it's harder and harder to
Yes.
justify some of these bigger
you're right.
teams doing these
Kent
games. But
State.
it's a chance for fans to go out and watch their team play, and these teams to kind of fine tune what they're doing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think Kent State's actually a pretty decent sized school. It's just the football program's not. It's not that big program you look to be scared of. So that's what's going on at Alabama. It'll be kind of one of those games where people like me can go out and actually enjoy a game because people are giving you their tickets.
Absolutely.
But what else we got?
Well, I tell you, this looks like a really good game. Ole Miss takes on Georgia, and it's going to be in Oxford.
Man, that will be a game because Ole Miss already 2 losses on the season. They're going to be fighting and scrapping all they can, and they're going to be in a state of mind. We got to prove something. It'll be an interesting game.
Of course, the big game, Florida versus Tennessee, and Tennessee has lost 11 straight against Florida.
It's a lot. And Rocky Top has been waiting on this game. They've had it circled. You know, a little prideful Alabama fan that I am, we like to think they've had our game circled. It's not. It's Florida. They're ready for that game. And by the way, Florida, not a lot of people talked a whole lot about them in the offseason. Their defense is stout.
Yeah.
They are.
Well, and it'll be interesting to see because this may be their biggest test yet. We're going to find out a lot more about this Florida team this weekend,
Yeah, you're right.
especially missing their quarterback.
And they haven't.
we'll
You're
find
right.
out,
They haven't
yeah.
been tested. As a matter of fact, they're number one. They're the number one defense in the nation.
Wow.
But they have not had a whole lot of tests yet. But you're right. They'll be tested this week, and Tennessee will be ready. It'll be a fun game, man.
Georgia, Ole Miss.
Georgia, Ole Miss, another one. It's going to be tough. Kirby Smart bringing his group, and is that at Ole Miss? I think.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
at Ole Miss.
That's what I thought. They're going up there to Oxford, and it'll be a hostile environment. They're going to be ready to win because they've lost 2, and I mean that fan base, man, they are a faithful bunch, but they're rowdy,
Yeah.
they're loud. They're not even fun if you're going
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah. Well, and you saw the scare that Georgia had this week against Missouri.
Yeah.
And so I think Georgia's going to be in for a rude awakening if they just look at Ole Miss's record and say, "Oh, it's a 1-2 team."
I mean, honestly, maybe this is just a Bammer in me, but I wouldn't put many people to beat Ole Miss again the rest of this year.
Yeah,
I really
Yeah.
wouldn't. They're a good team, man.
I'm with you. Of course, LSU, Auburn, Arkansas, Texas A&M at Jerry's World.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun one, man.
Yeah.
Brett Bielema, and against Texas A&M. Still, to me, they have an identity, but I'm just not sold on them yet.
Yeah.
Maybe after this weekend, if they meet Arkansas, I'll be sold. I think Arkansas's got a talented team, not the most versatile,
Yeah,
but I think they have a lot of heart. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just a sentimental favor to me.
it's gonna be a lot of fun. Maybe the most fun game of the week. I think that's gonna be a tight game. I really
I
do.
do too. That'll be a fun one.
Take a look around the rest of college football world. Clemson at Georgia Tech.
Now, who's Clemson? I'm sorry. My goodness, have they
They're
fallen off?
well. They had a pretty good weekend.
They did.
Against lesser competition, but this will be a big test, a road test for them in the ACC.
What do you think that says about the Clemson team, though? I mean, they still got their quarterback. Still got a lot of the players that were on that championship team. Or,
I think we're seeing a little bit of what happened with Florida State a couple years ago after winning the national championship.
Yeah.
What happened to Ohio State
yeah.
last year after winning the national championship. This is a little bit lethargic, a little bit hard to get geared up for some of these games.
Yeah.
And but they're still in a great position. I mean, if
But
they
they didn't
can,
even win the national championship. That's the thing.
well, no,
They
you're
got
right.
to it,
You're
though.
right. But
you're right.
It's
It's probably
hard
the
to
same thing.
it's hard to just keep keep
Yeah.
yourself up at a certain level.
You're right.
And we see that in different teams over the years.
Oh, yeah.
But but they still got a great shot to put it all together.
The reason I asked that question is I've heard so many people, and sometimes it's Florida State fans, sometimes it's people from the ACC, but I've heard so many people saying stuff like, Clemson's overrated and all this kind of stuff, and I'm thinking, they're not overrated, they just haven't, I don't think they've played to the potential they can play at yet.
Right,
And,
right.
They've still got some super talented people on that team. But you know what? One of the things like Alabama's coaches have said in the past, I heard Nick Saban say it a lot, there's got to be that chemistry.
Yeah.
You can have
Yeah.
all the talented guys in the world, but that team doesn't have the right chemistry and the right leadership.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what they're struggling with right now.
That's the thing. That's the other thing about, you mentioned the polls. I'm always a little confused as to do they rank these teams based on what they think these teams are going to do going forward, or based on what they've seen, what they believe about the team?
How many 5-stars are on the team? I think. Is what they're I mean, seriously, it seems like they just count how much
especially
talent they have.
especially early in the season.
Yeah, they're like, well, they had 4 or 5 stars and 3 4-stars come in this year that are going to be starting.
Sure.
So surely they're going to be great.
Surely they're going to be
It's
great.
crazy.
Wisconsin goes to Michigan State.
That'll be a game, man. I mean, seriously, those teams, Wisconsin with that big win over LSU fired up, and you got Michigan State who handled Notre Dame this past weekend. A lot of people didn't think they would. They did, though.
Michigan takes on Penn State.
Michigan routes Penn State.
Think so?
I don't know. We'll see.
The program's not in a very good place right now. So anyway, lots of good games over the weekend, and so I think we're going to be having a lot to talk about next week when we come back.
I think there's going to be a lot to talk about next week. It's a big weekend of college football, as it is every single weekend. It's just, even those weekends where you don't think it's going to be great, it turns out to be good in the end. There's always some surprises, some upsets. And so maybe that Penn State Michigan game could be a surpriser.
Yeah, you never know when a game like that is going to become an upset.
That's right.
And kind of change things around. But anyway, well, once again, before we get out of here, shout out to Johnny Gwynn, Deep Fried Studios.
And Roll Tide, old Henry.
He wants to make sure we get those in.
Roll Tide, John Boy, ooh, back in Jasper watching every week.
But anyway, once again, you can always you can find our podcast on iTunes.
That's right.
And you can
tell
find
friends about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And go to our website, fansdownsouth.com. We got all kinds of stuff there. You can keep up to date with us right here on Facebook and on Twitter. So all kinds of different ways that you can connect with us. Anyway, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time right here, Fans Down South.